Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good afternoon everyone. Thank you so much for spending your Saturday afternoon with us today on the Jabatan Pendidikan Negeri Johor JEDLR series of webinars. Today we will be sharing with you some contents regarding the Form 5 curriculum induction, the fundamentals of CFR. This is our 13th series of webinar which aim to provide support for all the teachers out there in Johor and of course across all over Malaysia. 2020 saw the final rollout of the curriculum induction of the CFR aligned curriculum for secondary schools. Last year, for the Form 5 curriculum inductions, we have trained 410 Form 5 English teachers online. And maybe some of you who are watching the webinar today, you were one of the participants. Now, ladies and gentlemen, JPN Johor had received various feedback from all PPDs throughout Johor, in which most of the feedbacks were concerning the teacher's understanding of the documents itself and hence in developing lesson plans according to CFR. With this in mind, we have with us today two experts, Puan Vicknes, Nambiar Gopal, our national CFR master trainers who have been training English teachers in Johor from 2016 to 2020, and she's from SMK Taman Scientex, Pasir Gudang. Hi Vicky, how are you?
Hi, Rokiah. It's great to see you. Hi
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, it's nice to see you, looking great. And also thank you for being with us today. And another one of our panel of experts is Mr. Jian Yong. Mr. Chiu is a state trainer from SMK Sri Kukup Pontian. He had been training teachers in Johor and also in Pontian from 2019 to 2020. How about you, Chiu?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you, Madam Rokiah. Hi, everyone.
All right, thank you. So good to see both of you. All right, I wouldn't want to keep the excitement any longer. Let's proceed. So the ball is now in your court. So off to you, Vicky and Chiu. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys
Thank
later.
you. Hi, let's welcome Cikgu Vicky.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us. Hi, Cikgu Chu. Nice to have you around as well. All right.
Hi.
I think I shall start the session first. And our session today is going to focus on Form 5 curriculum induction and the fundamentals of CEFR. Okay. Right. So basically, this session is going to inform or probably re-inform the teachers about the most important aspects of our CEFR lesson. Right. In this slide, we can actually see the CEFR global scales, okay, from A1 to C2. So A1 level to C2 level is what something we will be covering throughout the education, English language education from primary school till secondary school. Now, why the B2 level is highlighted? Okay, you must be wondering, or you probably know the answer. The B2 is actually highlighted because by the end of Form 5 pupils' academic year in their secondary school, we actually expect them to be in their B2 level. Okay. We expect them to be in the B2 level by the time they are out of the secondary education for Form 5 pupils, yeah? Okay, next please. Right, if you look at this slide, we can actually see the front layout or front page of the most important documents that we will be using when planning a Form 5 lesson plan. Right, the first one would be the DSKP, which I would always call it an umbrella document where it covers a very general information about what CEFR is and how our English language curriculum is at the moment. And we also have syllabus and the most important document, I would say, the schemes of work, right? Next, please. Right, the CEFR aligned curriculum framework. There are 4 important documents at the moment, but this slide is going to highlight 3 first, and the other one will be mentioned in a while, right after this. The first one is the syllabus, where the teachers will actually get information about the themes, the topics, the grammar aspects, the vocabulary, and the structure of the whole CEFR lesson execution. Okay. In the SOW, the schemes of work, right? It is basically a teaching manual, and it links the learning standards with the learning activities. So basically, SOW provides very detailed information on what has to be done in each lesson, right? And the textbook, of course, it is aligned to the CEFR, and it comprises the student's book, teacher's book, and also audio files for all listening activities. And definitely, these activities are helping or assisting the teachers as well as the pupils to work on achieving all the learning standards that they are required to achieve in the SOW. Next, please. Next, please. Right. Now, document Penjajaran Curriculum DPK 2.0. It's a very important document. Why is it appearing separately and not together with the other documents just now? Okay, it's because this document was recently released after the COVID-19 pandemic, right? So basically, this DPK 2.0 informs all the teachers about the important basic skills, the extra skills, and the complementary skills that they need to cover throughout an academic year. Okay, so what happens here, before this, we used to refer to these schemes of work where we follow the lesson flow from the schemes of work. But now we have the DPK to inform us a more important or essential range of skills that needs to be covered by the pupils by the end of their academic year. Right? I need to remind that if teachers do not complete all the basic skills in the DPK, they are actually not doing what is necessary for the Form 5 pupils to achieve their B2 level. Okay, so it's very important not to disregard this document. Right? Next slide, I will pass it to Chu.
Hello, thank you very much, Cikgu Vicky. I'm so happy to see a lot of you online right now. Okay, I can see teachers from all over Malaysia, like Penang, Kota Baru, Kelantan, Cikgu Lim, Cikgu Alice Lee from SMK Taman Pelangi Indah, Pasir Gudang. I'm so happy to see all of you. Okay, so without further ado, let me proceed with our major concern today. Okay, so now let's look at the slide. So what you can see here is the 4 skills, okay, reading, listening, speaking, writing, plus language awareness, plus literature in action. So this is considered very familiar to most of us teachers because this is very common as our lesson cycle, as you can see in our English download textbook. So usually we'll start off with the 4 skills, then we'll also have language awareness and literature in action, okay, embedded in a lesson cycle. So what I would like to highlight here is we would like to give equal attention to all the 4 language skills, namely reading, listening, speaking, and writing. Okay, unlike previous years, we only highlighted reading and writing all the time. So with this new CFR aligned curriculum, it is vital, it is compulsory for us teachers as education practitioners to highlight the 4 skills, okay, not disregarding any one of them. Next slide, please. Okay, so I would like to show you a structure of a basic lesson. Okay, we usually start off with pre-lesson. So pre-lesson is more commonly known as a set induction or starter or warmer. Okay, used to be called set induction, starter and warmer. So usually we'll start with pre-lesson, then we'll move on to the lesson development stage or what we call lesson delivery, where we have our pre while post stages too in our lesson development stage. And at the end, we will sum up using a post-lesson activity. So this is a basic structure of a lesson. Post-lesson is also considered a closure of a lesson. Okay, so bear in mind, you can see the highlighted part in yellow. Main and complementary skills, as stated in our SOW, learning standards of every lesson, need to be taught, need to be achieved in our lesson development section. Okay, bear in mind, teachers, that main and complementary skills should be achieved in our lesson development stage, not pre-lesson, not post-lesson. This is very important that all of us need to bear in mind. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so I would just like to start off with listening skill. Okay, we're going to touch on all the 4 skills plus language awareness plus literature in action. So let's start off with listening skill. So as for listening skill, you need to know we also have pre while post stages. So for pre-listening stage, it is important because this is the stage where we prepare our pupils for what they want to hear. And we also need to pre-teach background information and also prepare our pupils for a language that they may use later when they listen to the audio text. So in this stage, it is important that we have activities. For example, we can pre-teach difficult vocabulary. Okay, let's take an example. Let's look at Unit 2 of our English download textbook. Okay, Lesson 14, where we have an audio text about Robin Hood. So it is vital for teachers to expose pupils with the necessary vocabulary, for example, outlaw, criminals, steal from wealthy travelers. So it is important for us to expose them to the vocabulary that they may come across later when they listen to the audio. So of course, this is just a sample activity, just an example. Teachers, you can come up with any other suitable activity that is suitable to tap our pupils' prior knowledge before we let them listen to the audio later. Okay, next please. Okay, so after finished with our pre-listening stage, then we will come to the stage where we call the while listening or the during listening stage. In this stage, it is important, teachers, we always must remember to give our pupils a reason to listen. Why do we need to listen? Okay, there must be a purpose for us to listen to the audio text. We set a task, for example. Pupils, they don't listen for nothing. They don't listen for fun. We have to set the task first beforehand, and we need to highlight the task. Make sure they understand the task before we proceed with the audio. Okay? And usually when we set tasks, we move from just listening, or what we call first listening, to listening for specific information, or what we call second listening. So usually when you look at our English download textbook, when we listen to the same audio twice, the first time when we listen, usually there will be a question asking for general idea, asking for the gist of the audio. For example, they will ask for what is the purpose of the writer? Okay, what is the main idea of the text? So usually pupils will have to answer that part first, listening for gist before they proceed to specific details and specific information. Okay, so listening for specific information, usually it will consist of activities such as multiple choice questions, such as true-false questions, okay, where pupils need to listen for details in the audio text. Okay, next. So and then we will proceed to our post-listening stage. So what do we do in the post-listening stage? This is important, okay? This is the stage where we review our pupils' learning, or we ask pupils to review their own learning, to extend their learning, to personalize learning, okay? So what are the meaning of these terms? Review learning is to backtrack what pupils have learned and what they do not understand. Okay, what went well in their learning, what went not that well in their learning. Okay, extending learning is a form of consolidation where students join things into one. Personalizing learning is where we find ways that pupils can relate to the audio text that they listen to. How can they relate to their personal experience? Okay, and not forgetting, we also need to include formative assessment. Okay, bear in mind, teachers, formative assessment does not necessarily need to only appear in the post-listening stage. It can happen as early as the pre-listening stage, while listening stage, post-listening stage. Okay, more of formative assessment will be explained by our Cikgu Vicky later in the second part of the presentation. Next. Okay, so that's all for listening. So next, proceed to speaking skills. So teachers may ask me questions, for example, how can we support pupils speaking? Actually, there are many ways that teachers can do in order to support their pupils speaking. One of them is by giving them speaking frames. So what are speaking frames, teachers? Okay, speaking frames actually you should be very familiar, because as you can notice in our English download textbook, okay, there's always a language bank section where pupils can refer to. Okay, it's sort of like fixed phrases and also partial dialogues, okay, that can support pupils when they speak. For example, when you ask a question, okay, we can start off with, can you explain about blah blah blah? Okay, do you agree that blah blah blah? What do you think? Blah, blah, blah. So these are actually speaking frames that act as scaffolds to help our pupils when they speak. Actually, teachers, you can practice differentiation strategies, okay, when we talk about speaking frames. Okay, how? For example, more proficient pupils, okay, usually they can speak very freely. They don't need any kind of support, for example. Let them be. So in that case, you don't have to provide that many speaking frames. But for less proficient pupils, speaking frames are very, very important, because they need the speaking frames in order to guide them to speak. Okay, next. Okay, the second way is by using drills or chants. Okay, some of you may ask me, teachers, okay, drills or chants, wouldn't it be very old-fashioned? Yes, okay, it is kind of old school, very traditional, very conventional, but without a doubt, actually, drills and chants actually have their own effectiveness, actually, when it comes to speaking, especially when we talk about repeated drills, when we talk about repetition. This will help to increase retention among our pupils, and this will actually support their speaking later. Okay, next. Okay, reading aloud. Okay, some of you may ask me, okay, what about reading aloud? Reading aloud, isn't that supposed to be a reading activity? No, teachers, bear in mind, reading aloud is not a reading activity. It's actually a speaking activity. Okay, this is particularly useful, especially for pupils who have very few contact hours with English, when they are not exposed to the language. Okay, reading aloud really helps them. Why? Because as they read aloud, it will improve their pronunciation, it will improve their enunciation, and at the same time, it will give them the confidence to utter words. So this is actually a starting point. After reading aloud for a few times, it will actually help them to develop their speaking skills later. Okay, next. Teacher reformulating pupil utterances. Okay, this is particularly important, especially when pupils make errors and mistakes when they speak. So it is our teachers, it is us, okay, teachers, our teacher's duty to reformulate pupils' utterances. Okay, we need to help them to restructure, to remodel, okay, their speech if they make mistakes. And bear in mind, teachers, when it comes to reformulating, it is important we don't do it directly in front of the student. For example, okay, just give you an example. Okay, for example, I have this student named Nizam, for example. Okay, he spoke pretty badly. Okay, so I shouldn't just go like this. Okay, Nizam, you're wrong. I is. Are you sure you're going to use I is? Okay, it's wrong. So we shouldn't do like this, because this will actually embarrass and make them shy, and they will totally shut down after that. Okay, so when it comes to reformulating pupils' utterances, it is advisable for you to do it after they're finished presenting, and if possible, do it indirectly. Make sure that they get it, okay, but you do it indirectly. Okay, you recast it in an indirect manner. So it's important, because if you were to correct them directly, it will actually jeopardize their self-esteem. Okay, next. And the last one is getting pupils to memorize and rehearse dialogues. This is also actually one of the very special techniques that teachers you may use. Okay, memorizing and rehearsing dialogues. But bear in mind, teachers, you have to give your pupils time and space. Give them to formulate their own framework, because different pupils have different ways of memorizing. The way I memorize may not be similar to how you memorize things. So give them time, give them space to practice the language, and I'm sure they'll be able to do it very well. Okay, Teachers, how are you so far? Are you with me? Are you following? Okay. Maybe we can do a simple activity before we proceed. I know that it's very heavy. Okay. Let's maybe breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Okay. If you need to do some stretching, why not? Stretch yourself. Okay. Before we proceed to the next section. Okay. Greetings, Cikgu Hafiza from Negeri Sembilan. Okay. Okay. Now let's move on to reading skills. Okay. When we talk about reading skills, it is important for you to know about knowledge areas. So what are knowledge areas? Knowledge areas are actually keywords taken from our SOW, which are related to to reading skills. Okay. They are complementing the learning standards in our SOW. So when you talk about reading skills, they are knowledge areas that teachers have to help pupils to master in order for them to be able to read independently. So the first knowledge area, as you can see here, okay, we are going clockwise. So the first one is the combination of letters. Okay, what is the knowledge of combination of letters? Okay, how letters are combined to form words to convey meaning. Okay, so how are we going to make sure we can reinforce this knowledge area among our pupils? So one of the very simple way is to pre-teach difficult or key vocabulary and leave it written on the board. So pre-teaching vocabulary is very important. Okay, and bear in mind, teachers, when you pre-teach vocabulary, you don't pre-teach all difficult vocabulary. Let's say in a reading text, there are 20 difficult words that you would like, that you think that pupils may struggle with. Okay, maybe you can just choose 5 or 6 significant ones that you think may be able to help pupils to understand the meaning in context later when they read the reading skill. Just choose only 5 or 6 and pre-teach this vocabulary in order to ease them later when they read the text. Okay, do not stress them by giving them a whole list of difficult vocabulary, and then that's the time that they will go, oh, switch off. Okay, yeah, so that's important. That's the first knowledge area. The second knowledge area is the knowledge of sentence structure. So as we can see here, the knowledge of sentence structure is consists of various elements of sentence. Okay, for example, the subject, the verb, object, complement, adverbial phrases, clauses, etc. Okay, and how these elements are organized, are designed in different ways to convey meaning. So having the knowledge of sentence structure requires our pupils to become familiar with the knowledge of sentence structure, with various elements of grammar, as well as various types of sentences. For example, simple sentences, compound sentences, complex sentences. So one of the sample activities, okay, or maybe some sample activities that you may conduct as teachers in your own classroom will be substitution tables, gap fills exercises, complete the sentence task. So this will help them to have a better grasp of the knowledge of sentence structure and how, the different positioning of SVA happens. Okay, now let's move on to the third one, knowledge of word combination. Okay, so what's the meaning of word combination? How different words, for example, a few words are combined and they form an expression, okay, which convey a totally different meaning when you read it as compared to when you read it individually, individual word. So basically, this is what we call a word chunks, okay? Language chunks, collocations, okay? All these are important. For example, I just give you an example. Over the moon, for example, okay? Over the moon means very happy. Okay, so in this situation, it is quite impossible for pupils to understand word by word, over, the, and moon. So it may convey a different meaning. So when it's combined together, for example, over the moon, passed with flying colors, for example. So the whole expression mean another thing. So it is vital for us as teachers to teach our pupils the knowledge of certain important collocations which they may come across later when they read the text. Okay, so the next one, number 4, knowledge of text structure. As we know, when we look at our English download textbook, actually there are a variety of text types that you may come across, ranging from online advertisements, personal emails, magazine articles, as well as reviews. Okay, so it is our duty as teachers to expose our pupils to as many types of text types, okay, as possible. And it is our duty to highlight the features of every single text type. For example, okay, differentiating an article and a report, okay, it's very important for us teachers to guide our pupils with this particular knowledge area. Okay, next. And the last one is the knowledge of the world or topic. Okay, in the new CFR aligned curriculum, okay, our aim is to help our pupils to stand on the international level, to introduce our pupils to what is going on around the world and to see things from a multicultural perspective. So, okay, when we look at our English download textbook, it is advisable for teachers to stick with all the textbook materials provided in our textbook. Okay, don't simply change. You have to use what is given, the prescribed text given in our English download textbook, because they are targeted B2 level. Okay, they target our B2 level for our pupils. Okay, and it's important for us to remain with these textbook materials to achieve the main and complementary skills of each lesson. However, okay, let's say if you feel that, okay, this topic is a little bit unfamiliar to my pupils, for example, okay, you may introduce a local context just for the purpose of activating pupil schemata. For example, let me just give an example. For example, Unit 3 of our English download textbook, The World of Sport. Okay, when you can see the first page, it introduces a lot of sports events around the world. For example, pole vaulting, okay, which seems to be a little bit unfamiliar to our pupils in Malaysia. So in that situation, in order for pupils to understand sport events, maybe you can introduce sepak takraw, but just during the pre-lesson stage, okay? During the pre-lesson, the starter stage, to introduce them so that they know what they're about to read. But when it comes to reading the main text, you should use what is given in our textbook. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so now the last skill, writing skill. Okay, drafting. Drafting is a very important skill that most of our pupils, okay, since Form 1, they have been exposed to the drafting process. Okay, it's an ongoing thing. So bear in mind, teachers, drafting, okay, is not the final version of an essay. Okay, it may contain a lot of errors and it's okay. Okay, and depending on the learning standard, depending on the focus of the lesson, you don't have to draft the whole essay actually. For example, the focus is only drafting an opening paragraph or a closing paragraph, for example. So you just focus on drafting that particular paragraph will do, depending on the focus of the lesson. Okay? And then next is about editing and redrafting, which involves proofreading and also correcting errors. Of course, after you have drafted the first draft, the first plan, okay, pupils will need to edit, redraft it if necessary, proofread and correct it. And this is actually very important also because you need to improvise from your draft. And when it comes to editing, proofreading, and correcting, it is advisable for us only to focus on one or two language aspects at a time. Okay, we rectify and repair only one at a time. For example, today, I would like you, pupils, to look at only spelling, for example. Okay, and maybe we look only at tenses. So we are only looking at the verbs. We are not looking at something else. Okay, you can, if you say that you want to edit the whole thing, why not? If you have really proficient pupils and they can do it, you can go ahead. But I'm talking about the less proficient ones. Maybe we can specify what they need to edit so that they won't get too pressured. Okay, and the third important sub-skill here, as you can see, the third bullet point, is applying cohesion effectively. So this is also a very, very important sub-skill for our writing skills. Okay, how to use cohesive devices effectively. Okay, how to use linking verbs, sequence connectors. So all these are also important sub-skills that we teachers need to make sure that our pupils master in order for them to master their writing. Okay, next. Okay, and we talk about writing. Of course, also we talk about using grammar and vocab accurately. That is the ultimate purpose. And also selecting and planning appropriate content. Okay, teachers, you know your pupils. Your pupils may not be the same as my pupils. Okay, so as teachers, we need to select and plan accordingly based on our pupils' level, what they really need. But bear in mind, teachers, you have to always follow the SOW. You need to follow the SOW, the learning standards specified for every single lesson. That's very, very important. Okay, next. Okay, so this is just a summary of the new CFR online curriculum. Okay, as you can see here, reading, listening, speaking, writing, not forgetting also our language awareness lesson and also literature in action. Okay, our language awareness lesson, during our language awareness lessons, grammar is explicitly taught. Grammatical structures and functions are integrated. So, as you can see in our textbook, there are language awareness lessons. Okay, the difference between past perfect simple and past perfect continuous, for example. So we teach them explicitly, but bear in mind, teachers, okay, you can always embed the teaching of grammar in other skills-based lesson. For example, in a reading lesson, in a listening lesson, okay, when you feel that, okay, there's a need for you to teach grammar, you can always embed the teaching of grammar in those skills-based lessons. And not forgetting the last one, literature in action, okay, focus on pupils' ability to enjoy and appreciate different text types, to analyze and evaluate text, and to respond imaginatively to text. Okay, so literature, as you know, okay, we have our prescribed text for Form 5, we have our novel Captain Nobody, we have our poem A Poison Tree, What Has Happened to Lulu. Okay, so we stick to the text. Okay, and of course, if you feel that you want to give them, okay, more literature exercises, you can do so. So basically, this is a summary of what I'm about to speak. Okay, that's all from me. I'm going to hand it back to you, Cikgu Vicky.
Thank you so much, Cikgu Chu. That was quite a lot of information, right, dear teachers and audience out there? Right. Everyone is okay? I hope everyone is doing good, right? So what we're going to do now is to focus on the other aspects apart from what Cikgu Chu have explained, right? I will start with formative assessment. I am very sure that formative assessment would have become rather familiar among teachers out there, right? It's not something unusual. I'm sure we have come across the learning of formative assessment. Even I have done that when I was in my teacher training college. So it's not an unusual term, but the inclusion of formative assessment is given emphasis in the CEFR lesson, right? Please take note on that. So what is formative assessment? Okay, formative assessment refers to a wide variety of methods that teachers use to conduct in-process evaluations of students. That's the keyword, in-process evaluation of students, to evaluate their comprehension, learning needs, and also academic progress in a lesson. So when we do formative assessment in a lesson, we get to know where we are going, where each pupil is now, and how do we get there. Okay, so if you look at the picture, you could see a very efficient gear up there, right? Formative assessment, teaching, and learning is very much interrelated. Okay, so formative assessment is not only to benefit the teachers, as in to know where the pupils are at the moment and what can be done next in order to improvise the learning and teaching, but it also provides information to the pupils on where they are and what they need to be doing in order to improve. Okay, next please. Right, the facts about formative assessment. Okay, it's like myth versus reality, right? People think that formative assessment is about giving activities that would engage the pupils in learning. Yes, it's true to a certain extent, but there's more to it, right? Formative assessment is never about giving pupils grades. No, Okay, and it's not about completing school records. Next. And it is not about creating nice and attractive and cheerful activity, but not important activities. So what is formative assessment? So formative assessment is about following and tracking pupils' progress, right? Responding to pupils' emerging learning needs. This is an amazing point, guys. If you do not do formative assessment, you don't get a chance, or you're probably missing a chance to see how each individual in the classroom is progressing. So when you do formative assessment, you get to respond to pupils' emerging learning needs probably in the next session or in the upcoming lessons, right? And finally, formative assessment is to help pupils become more active and engaged in their learning. So let's look at few formative assessment tools in the next slide. Okay, I have projected 6 different formative assessment tools here. And bear in mind, dear teachers, these are not the only tools that they can use, but these are just my personal favorites. And I would like to share to you why I feel these formative assessments tool are really good. The first one is traffic light. It's used to check pupils' progress on their status when completing a task. So instead of you calling out their name or just walking around in the class to check their progress, you ask them to carry the traffic light. And of course, it will definitely engage the pupil, and it will also indicate the pupils that the teacher is actually monitoring and watching them, right? The next one, pyramid reflection and exit card. I think I'll give explanation. It's almost the same, right? Pyramid reflection and exit card is to elicit personalized information from the pupils on the learning. So basically, the teacher will have all the rights, all the freedom to design the questions that they would want to get from the pupils, right? You can put whatever question you want in the pyramid reflection and exit card. And what happens is that each individual, right, will take the effort to answer, to respond, and you can get some personal information from there. You can even get to know about how well the lesson has been. I mean, apart from you getting to know about the effectiveness of your teaching in the classroom, you also get to know about probably the ambience or probably the technological tools that didn't attract them that much. You know, the little minute details you can get from them in order to improve the upcoming lessons. Okay, the next one is lollipop sticks. It looks very cheerful. It may be very suitable for preschoolers, I suppose. But I personally feel rather than calling out pupils' name in the classroom, lollipop sticks is more engaging in a sense that it keeps the students alert. You see, when you are putting your hand inside a jar, for example, and picking up a pupil's name, I believe that when you are actually looking for one particular name, all the pupils in the classroom will stay alert and be ready in case their names are being called, right? So that is definitely engaging. The next two stars and a wish, medals and mission. Okay, it may look like two same tools, but they are quite different, right? They're quite different. 2 stars and a wish is actually a tool where pupils will provide information on 2 things they like about the lesson. It could be about the content of the lesson or maybe the whole lesson, the execution of the lesson from the teacher. And the best part is they will write something on the wish column. So in this wish column is where you get to know what pupils exactly want in the lesson, right? So you don't just go and do things on your own, but you take their opinion into consideration. And what happens here is that it kind of empower them as owners of the lesson as well. So it's not a one-way process, but the pupils get to communicate with the teachers in a very subtle manner. I say it's not intimidating at all. And this is where teachers get an excellent chance to know where they have gone wrong or where they could improve their lesson. Okay. For medals and mission, it's something that the teachers will be providing the pupils. Okay. When you say medals, obviously medal is to acknowledge someone's winning. So in this context, we provide a medal, not as in a physical medal, probably a token or a star or a grading or a number system, any system that is very convenient for teachers, anything is fine as long as the pupils know that they are being acknowledged for their good work. That's medals. And based on that, teachers will inform the pupils on what they need to be achieving next. And that would be the mission. And the teacher and pupils should be working together in order to reach the next mission or achieve the next mission. Okay, so these are the tools that I personally use in the classroom, and I find it very effective. And you get very near to the pupils, as in you get to know what exactly they want, rather than you working on your own plan, assuming the things that they want in a lesson. Right? Next slide, please. Okay, that was formative assessment. I hope it was clear. It was a very, very short and brief explanation. And dear teachers, please, if you want more information on formative assessment, there is a handbook on formative assessment out there that you can have access to. And please read all the options and choices you have, different choices you have to conduct to include formative assessment in your lesson plan, right? Now let's look at differentiation strategies. So this is the next aspect. I hope you guys are all okay, still following me, right? It's quite a lot to absorb in, but I'm sure it'll be worth it, right? I know it's quite a lot, but it's definitely worth it. Right, what is differentiation strategies? Once again, I still remember when I was in primary school, my English teacher would not come to my desk at all, but my teacher will always be standing on the desk of my friends over there. But back then I couldn't comprehend why that happened, and I didn't even bother really, because I was okay to do the task on myself. But now I understand. Differentiation strategies is about teachers working on creating a personalized or tailoring a lesson plan that suits or that complements the needs of each child in the classroom. Okay, so there are 8 different strategies that teachers can actually use in the classroom. And if you want more information about these strategies, dear teacher, don't worry. This information are clearly given in the syllabus, in the schemes of work document. Okay, in-depth explanation has been given in the SOW. So please feel free to read. Take time to read and understand how it can be executed in the classroom. Okay, this is very important. We have 8. The first one would be the differentiation strategy in instruction and feedback. A simple example would be for teachers to provide a one-shot instruction for a good or a higher level proficiency pupil, but then you decide to give stage by stage instruction for pupil from the lower level. Okay, so that's how you differentiate in instruction. And the task, right? The task, probably you ask a student to write a 6-paragraph essay, whereas you ask another set of students, or you're okay to accept another set of students to provide you an essay with 3 paragraphs. Okay, so you should know what you are expecting them to produce at the end of the day. Even though the task differs, dear teachers, you need to remember, at the end of the day, you would want them to achieve the learning standards and also the learning objectives that you have developed in the lesson plan. That's the most important part. Okay. Strategy 3, the type and amount of support. This very much explains the example I gave just now, the type and amount of support. So you decide to give probably a language bank or framework for some student, and for some student you push them, or I shouldn't use the word push, you just ask them to work independently because you know they can cope independently, right? So this is how you work on that. Strategy for the outcome. The task and the outcome can be interrelated. So the outcome is, you don't deliberately tell the pupils that, okay, Amina, I want you to compose an essay with 3 paragraphs. Syed, you compose an essay with 6 paragraphs. You don't tell that, but you know what to expect from whom. Okay, that's what the outcome is, right? Strategy 5 is the time given to complete a task. Time, you probably give 10 minutes for a child to finish a reading comprehension, half an hour for some pupils in the classroom to finish the reading comprehension. But you must remember, when you are using this strategy, please think of the fast finishers. What would the fast finishers do next if they have completed the task earlier, right? Strategy 6, supporting individual learning preferences and needs. Now, from the formative assessment that we did just now, right? You get opinion from the pupils on what they actually want in the lesson. So supporting individual learning preference and needs is acknowledging that. What is the teacher doing in order to conduct a lesson that would make the children happy? For example, they might say, teacher, let's go to the lab, computer lab today, and let's do quizzes, for example. So you can make arrangement to plan the upcoming lesson while achieving the learning objectives to do such thing in order to let them engage in their preferred learning environment, right? The type of question asked, right? Some may answer open-ended questions. Some may have MCQ questions. So that's really up to the teachers. But bear in mind again, achieving the learning objective is the most important thing here, all right? Are we giving tasks and implementing differentiation strategies to ensure they are achieving the learning standards that they need to acquire by the end of the lesson is the most important part. The feedback given. I think Cikgu Chu have explained a bit on the feedback just now. It's very important to highlight on this. Say a student is actually doing an essay, 6-paragraph essay, right? And you come across a lot of errors. For a child or for a learner from a higher proficiency level, it might be easy for that student to understand and accept if you decide to provide a complete feedback, as in commenting on every aspect that has gone wrong. Okay, they may be able to comprehend and they may be able to rectify. But for those of from lower level, okay, you do not want to highlight every single mistakes that they have done. Of course, you must talk about the positive things that they have done first. Even if the essay consists of only 2 sentences, give them credit for the 2 sentences that they have composed. And of course, after that, you inform them at least just one aspect that they need to rectify, rather than explaining to them that, oh, your essay has to be long, the grammar is long, the choice of word is wrong, the spelling is wrong. Don't do that, especially to the weaker learners, because it might intimidate them, and like Cikgu Chu said just now, it might just shut them off. Okay, so this is strategy 8, where you manipulate or you adjust the way you give feedback to your kids. Right, next slide please. Okay, now we are in a very, very, very important section. Even after CEFR it has been quite a few years CEFR has penetrated into our English language education system, and yet there are some teachers who find it a bit hard to compose a lesson properly, I would say, in accordance to the documents and also the information that has been given to them. So today we are going to look into writing and planning a lesson. This might be a bit heavy, okay? So I just want everyone to, relax, probably take 10 seconds to embrace a moment of silence, okay? And then we shall get into this slide, okay? Right. Writing and planning a lesson. Stages and steps in planning and managing a CEFR aligned lesson. I need to humbly remind all of you that the information in these slides are not 100% from me. It's not from me actually. I have derived it from the teacher's book implementing the CEFR aligned curriculum. So the book is quite heavy, quite a lot. So what we have done is to take out all the important and necessary information that would be handy for all the teachers to immediately sit and plan a lesson, right? Okay, so the first thing here, before writing the lesson plan, while writing the lesson plan, and after writing the lesson plan, what you need to do. Next slide, please. let's focus on what we need to do before writing a lesson plan. Okay, step 1, refer to the relevant documents. Okay, please, dear teachers, do not simply assign pupils with tasks without understanding what the SOW require the pupil to achieve at the end of the day. Okay, so the MOE documents needed is the curriculum framework. Like I've explained just now, curriculum framework is a very broad framework to explain how CEFR works. The DSKP, the scheme of work, the document penjajaran curriculum, and the yearly teaching plan. Now, initially, we used to refer to scheme of work and we will just follow the flow in the scheme of work. But now, since we have DPK 2.0, we need to take into account the skills that have been mentioned in the DPK to compose a yearly teaching plan. This should have done by all the panels in the school actually. So what happens now is, dear teachers, you need to have your yearly teaching plan with you and you need to have your scheme of work. Yearly teaching plan will inform you which lesson should be conducted, and when you refer to the scheme of work, it is going to provide you information on what exactly need to be conducted for each and every individual lesson. Okay, next slide please. Step 2, refer to the relevant teaching and learning material. So just now, it was the MOE documentation. Now, teaching material. Students' book, textbook, English download. Okay, very convenient. It makes all the teachers' life much more easy. You don't have to design your own materials. You just need to go along on what's happening on the download book, because it works or assists the pupils as well as the teachers to ensure that the pupil will be achieving the learning standard intended at the end of the day. Okay, we have teacher's book. It's actually a handbook which gives you ideas on ways to use the material with our students. Okay, and we also have students' workbook for teachers' reference. Okay, some schools have managed to get this document for free. Some have taken their effort to purchase it on their own. So yeah, it depends. It's better if all of you have access to all of these 3 documents. Okay, next slide please. Okay, now we are moving to while writing the lesson plan, also a very important part of the lesson. Okay, everything is important in this webinar. Step 1, identify the learning standards and write the learning objectives. So you need to get to know what learning standard is mentioned in the SOW. So today we are going to use lesson 35 from Form 5 SOW, right? And teachers, remember to include the teaching of grammar and vocabulary in the teaching of the 4 skills. So some may ask, what vocabulary or grammar should we be teaching? Again, it's mentioned in the SOW. If you look at the SOW at the right-hand side of the table for each lesson, they will mention you which vocabulary or grammar aspects that you need to be highlighting in that particular lesson. And please make sure that the objectives are adhering to the SMART tool. Okay, SMART means, is the learning objective specific? Is it measurable? Is it attainable and realistic? And is it time bound? Okay, next slide please. Stage 2, while writing the lesson plan, identify the learning standards. So this is how the lesson objective should be composed. If you can see, let's not read the lesson plan, but you should be able to see the differences between what's going on the learning standard column and what's going on the learning objective column. So learning objective has been derived from the learning standards, but what you wish the pupils to complete by the end of session is created by the teacher. Okay, it's done by the teacher. Next slide, please. Okay, again, a gentle reminder that SMART tool need to be used when you're composing the learning objective. Step 2, plan the learning. So you have done the learning objective. Now, what needs to be done in the lesson in order for the pupils to achieve the learning objective? That's what you need to plan next. So in order to do that, how can we stage the lesson? It's very important. Now, if you look at the slide, we can see 4 different stages. It starts from the starter, and then you move on to the pre-lesson task, and then you move on to the lesson development task, and finally you design the post-lesson task. Okay. Many teachers, I do not want to generalize, but in case you choose to ignore starter, please stop doing that. Okay, starter is extremely important. Usually it would only take 1 or 2 minutes, but believe me, this starter could actually immediately activate their schemata and bring them gracefully into the content of the lesson. It's very important. Rather than immediately putting them into a deep end, what you want to do is to first introduce at least 1 or 2 information about what's going to happen in the lesson. It's very important. Okay, the next part of the lesson planning would be designing the pre-lesson task. Now, again, you don't straight away go into the lesson development part, but what happens here is you design a pre-lesson task. Here, you are going to introduce or slowly bring the kids or the pupils into the lesson development task. So they may get some hint on what's going to happen in the lesson development, right? In the lesson development part is where we require our pupils to achieve both the main skills as well as the complementary skills. Okay, so logically, teachers should be spending more time in the lesson development part. Okay, and the final part, which allows us to reflect upon our own teaching and what has happened in the lesson. Design the post-lesson task. For example, you can use exit cards, and you can probably, do a quiz, a questionnaire. This is to elicit information from the pupils on the learning and also to evaluate their understanding. Have they managed to get what they are supposed to get in the lesson? That's what we are trying to see in the post lesson. And bear in mind, dear teachers, you don't introduce a new activity or something new that require them to produce new information or create new information in the post lesson task. No, they just work on what they have done before and check on their understanding and the learning process. That's what happens in the post lesson task. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, step 3, prepare the materials. This is very important. Now we are all done with the lesson plan. Beautiful, perfect lesson plan. Everything is fine. What do we need to do next? Do not forget about the materials. Okay, usually preparing the lesson plan and choosing the materials happens together. Okay, they happen together. Step 3, use the materials given in the student's book, which is the textbook. And of course, you're allowed to adapt from authentic materials or reference book, especially for the non-textbook lessons. But a gentle and a humble reminder, when you are planning to choose materials outside the textbook, please make sure the materials are actually responding for B2 level learners. You need to check on that. You need to go on, there is a very common tool, a very famous tool. You can use the English profile to check the majority of words or phrases used in that particular material should be moving towards the B2 level. Okay, and you can also design your own material. And when you design the own material, please don't forget about hebat bacaan, HOTS, and 21st century learning. Okay, yes, CEFR is something very new, and we have been working on understanding what is CEFR and mastering the content of lesson execution and whatnot. But it doesn't mean that you get to disregard the good things that we were asked to do before this, which is to do HOTS questions, the higher order thinking skills question, and apply the 21st century learning concept in your learning. Nothing wrong in that. In fact, it's going to make the lesson more engaging, right? And the most important thing, since listening and speaking has been given equal attention in this CEFR system, right? It's essential for teachers to have access to all the audios and videos that need to be used in listening and speaking task, and sometimes also reading task. Okay, so you need to have access to all the audios and videos related to the particular year of teaching. Okay, and yeah, don't forget to apply differentiation strategies when you are preparing your material. You can, the differentiation strategy by task and outcome can appear on the designing of your material when you're designing your materials. Right, next slide please. Okay, this is how Hebat Bacaan Bahasa Inggeris book looks like. Just to, refresh your memory on the existence of this book. This book actually covers all the 4 themes: people and culture, health and environment, science and technology, and consumerism and financial awareness. And all these 4 themes, right, are definitely very much related to what's happening in the CEFR as well. So you can decide to use the Hebat Bacaan book according to your context, right? Next slide, please. Now, stage 3, towards the end, means you are done with planning the lesson. You are also done with executing the lesson. Now, what happens after the lesson execution? Do you just get out of the class and get back to planning the next lesson without referring to what has happened to the next previous lesson? No. Of course, the lesson, every single lesson that you have conducted in your classroom is providing you vital information on what need to be done in the upcoming lessons. Yes, the flow of the lesson is being provided in the SOW. Yes, they have told you what lesson you need to be conducting in upcoming sessions, but the information you get from these exit cards, the quiz, the verbal questioning, the pyramid reflection, the questionnaires, this information must be taken into account when you are planning the next lesson, as it addresses specifically the needs and the interests of pupil, which is very important in order to enhance a learning process. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, let's look at a sample lesson here. Cikgu Nurzalina, okay, I just get to see your question. Where can I get this Hebat Bacaan book? Okay, I believe that, I don't know, 3 to 4 years ago, each school should have received the thick booklet of Hebat Bacaan. I, in fact, received a copy for myself, but I'm sure there is a soft copy available online as well, right? I'm very sure there is a soft copy available online. And what I can do is to probably share the link of where you can get access of this information in the chat box later. Okay. We also have Cikgu Sam and also my other friends here who can respond to that. Don't worry, you'll definitely get access to that real soon. Okay, I'm glad you actually asked for it. Means someone is actually taking note of what I'm saying. Great, thank you so much. Okay, now let's look at the lesson plan. This is lesson 35 from Form 5 SOW, right? Of course, this is not the whole lesson plan. I mean, there's no point of me sharing the whole lesson plan here, but I've taken bits and pieces of the lesson to show you how SMART, the SMART tool, has been implemented or integrated in the formation of the objective, as well as I have shown few activities and example of how formative assessment and combination of differentiation strategies has been implemented in the lesson planning. Okay, now let's look at the lesson objective. By the end of the lesson, pupils will be able to, we have got 2 lesson objectives there. And obviously, those 2 lesson objectives are derived from the learning standards. Okay, I did not compose the whole thing myself, but it has been derived from the learning standards. If you can see, it's very clearly stated there. However, what I require the pupils to do in the classroom is decided by me, as in the teacher. So we as teachers, we need to decide what we would want them to do in order to achieve the objective, right? Now let's look at S. S means specific, so it actually provides details on what pupils will have to do. So it's obviously written there, punctuate and recognize. right? M means measurable. So when we talk about measurable, we need to see whether we can observe the outcome, whether we can measure and evaluate the outcome of what the pupils are doing in the classroom. Okay. So you can see the number there, 4/7 punctuation, 1/2 comparison. So you set a number that you wish your pupils to achieve at the end of the day. And you have A for attainable and R for realistic. Now, attainable and realistic, dear teachers, I need to remind you, like Cikgu Chiu mentioned just now, we as teachers, we should know our pupils better. Okay, we know our pupils better, so we need to set a task that would not be overwhelming for them, that would not intimidate them, but it should be expecting something from them. Always use this +1 concept. Okay, +1 means if you expect them to get score 5 this time, the next time you do a similar kind of activity, you might want to expect them to get 6. Okay, so you do this +1 concept, and you can be answering the concept of attainable and realistic in your learning objective. Okay, and finally, it's the time bound. T stands for the time allocated in order for them to achieve the learning objective. So this whole lesson takes about 1 hour, right? So by the end of the lesson, means by the end of 1 hour, they should be able to do these 2 activities and achieve the learning objective. Okay, that's what we call, that's what we see by time bound. And of course, dear teachers, when you move on to the pre-lesson development and also the closing of the lesson, you allocate time for each stage, don't you? You don't just spend 20 minutes for set induction and 10 minutes for lesson development and rush through. You probably give 30 seconds for them to do the exit cards and come out of the class. That's a very, very poor time management, right? So you need to allocate or set some time in your mind on how much minutes you would want to spend for each stage in a lesson, right? Let's move on to the next slide. Right, pre-lesson, lesson development, pre-writing. I'm going to straight away go to the lesson development because that's where I have highlighted the differentiation strategy 2 on task and the differentiation strategy 4 on outcome. Okay, so if you look at the first sentence, it says people guess the name and punctuation, and I've put in the brackets over there. That is a task assigned for a lower proficient pupil. And the one in pink is a task assigned for the proficient people. So pupils work in pair to create a rule. So the level of task is a bit higher because they are better, so they might do it quickly. So you set a higher target for them, right? And if you see the one that I've highlighted in red, it says early finishers are asked to list the remaining 7 punctuation marks that were not listed. Okay, so you have assigned task for the early finishers to do something else once you have done. There are other things that you can actually ask them to do as well. Probably ask them to move around the classroom and assist those who have not completed their task yet, right? Okay, so it's teachers' creativity. How do teachers want to make use of these excellent, good students in the classroom to be a resource themselves in the classroom to help others, to help guide others? Okay. And finally, in the lesson development stage, we have got teacher checks on pupils' pace in completing the task using the traffic lights, and an example of formative assessment, like I've mentioned before. Next slide, please. Okay, lesson development while writing. Now, at this point in the lesson, this is where the complementary skill and main skill is being achieved. Right, if you notice, the task for complementary skill is being done first, only then the pupils are given the task for the main skill, and that's absolutely fine. So even though the objective for the main skill is written first in the lesson plan, in the lesson development, it is okay to place the activity of complementary skill first before the main skill. That's absolutely fine. There's no issue in that. Okay. And in post writing, pupils who have completed exchange their paragraphs and allow their peers to check their punctuation. Those who have not completed can complete it as a homework. Please click next. Okay, here we have differentiation strategy 5 on time. So meaning that whoever have completed the task first, you let them to discuss the task and the outcome of the task in the classroom, of course with the teachers monitoring. When you do peer checking, you just don't give 100% autonomy to the students to work on what the students has produced. Of course, you have to monitor, right? And those who have not completed, you can complete as a homework. See what happens here. You don't really pressure the pupils to submit the task on time. You don't do that all the time. It's okay if once in a while the pupils get to take back the task home and work on their own pace and return it back to the teachers. It is okay to give them that space, because at the end of the day, the focus is for you to let them develop the skills. Okay, the learning standard that is required. So it is definitely okay to allow pupils to do that, because some people need their own time to work comfortably. That's okay. Okay, but don't do it all the time. Do not do it all the time. Okay, there are certain moments in a lesson you need to, set a time and tell, okay, you have to finish the lesson in 5 minutes. You have to do such things, but don't give this privilege all the time, right? Next slide, please. Oh yeah, that's another formative assessment. That peer checking is also another way of enabling formative assessment or activating formative assessment in the classroom. Now the post lesson, people review their learning in this lesson by completing an exit card. What went well in my writing, and my writing would have been even better if. Okay, so when you require the pupils to write comments on statements like this, you actually get to know whether the pupils understand where they are standing at that moment. That's very important, right? So this is another sample of formative assessment. That's why exit card is one of my favorite. It gets very personal to the pupils and you get to know the information. And it directly gives you information on what you can do next in the upcoming writing lessons, right? Next, please. Okay, so that's all for now. And teachers, before I open the floor for Q&A session, I think I would like to gently request, and this is a gentle reminder for myself too, please always be ready to unlearn and relearn information in a fast manner. Don't resist to changes. Okay, don't resist to changes, because the CEFR syllabus has been accepted and has been decided to be used in our syllabus for a reason. We would want our learners to stand on par in the international level, and how we describe their ability is in an international level of description, right? Descriptors. So yeah, let's not resist and be very productive into learning new things and accepting new information, right? Writing, Madam Chia. Right, writing of objective. Must it follow SMART? Can we use other models? Example, ABCD, audience, behavior, context, and degree. Right. Well, at this point, I think it's very important for me to tell that SMART tool was a suggestion given during the training session. So it is a suggestion given by those who have taught me on how CEFR works, and it's a suggestion. So I think ABCD, if it's going to answer, okay, if it's going to answer and respond to every single aspect that SMART tool is able to answer, then why not? Why not? Right? I hope I have answered your question, yeah, Madam Chair? Okay, good evening. I have a question for Vicknes. If I may, how would one do the formative assessment for online learning such as via Meet? Okay, right. Excellent question. I anticipated this actually. I kind of anticipated this. Teachers, I'm very sure there are lots of online applications available, interactive applications, I would say. A very simple example, yeah. Remember the lollipop sticks I told just now, right? There is an application called Wheel of Fortune of Names. So not only you get to put their names in the Wheel of Fortune, but you can actually also put questions together with the names in the Wheel of Fortune. Plenty of softwares as such to explore in order to conduct in order to do formative assessment in the lessons, right? In fact, it's even more interactive. The kids enjoy those things, right? So if you want to use things like exit cards, right? We have a personal access with the pupils, don't we? So we can always create an interactive whiteboard. We can use the interactive whiteboard. We can use the interactive application softwares that allow pupils to give comments, and only teachers will have access to it, right? There are Madam Sunitra, is it? Okay, I think Madam Sunitra, use Mr. Google. That's it. Use Mr. Google. Okay, just Google and type ways to do lollipop sticks and Wheel of Fortune and exit cards online in an interactive environment. Yeah, plenty of software, free softwares available out there, right? Thank you. Okay, Jessica, which one to follow here? A or B? A, set induction pre, while, post closure. Set induction pre, while, post. Okay, in the set B, there is no closure, right? There's no closure, right? Okay, it's advisable for us to use set A, obviously, because there's closure. Okay, definitely it's set A. It's like this. When you decide to, closure is like a very small element in the lesson. I'm not going to ask you to disregard closure, not at all. But usually, if it's using the model B, the task that we expect to be, the task that we expect to do in the closure section will appear in the post section. Okay, so you probably spend, closure is you reviewing and finalizing and wrapping up the session. Okay, so yeah, I would say if you want to know details, it's better to use model A as mentioned by Madam Jessica over there. Okay. Any more questions? Okay, great. If you look at the slide right now, teachers, this is the best part of the session, I suppose. Please scan this QRL code and get yourself involved in the, to gain the credit in the SPLKPM. Okay, so please spend some time to do that as soon as possible for you to gain marks in the SPLKPM. It's very important, right? You deserve the marks as well. You have spent, like, say, 1 hour to listen to this, and I hope it's very helpful for all of you. Okay. Okay, I think that's all for now, and I shall pass this session to Puan Rokiah.
Sorry, I was muted just now. All right, thank you very much, Vicky and Chiu, for such a comprehensive guide and sharing of the curriculum induction for Form 5. And there's so much that has been shared today, right from understanding of the content to the practical side of bringing CFR pedagogy into the classroom. And of course, right through the formative assessment, and not for us to put aside the most important part, which is PBD. And I think you can see here on the slides, I would like to impress upon all the teachers in Johor, especially of the officially sanctioned documents from BPK, which are the syllabus, all right, the syllabus, the DSKP, the scheme of work, and the formative assessment. You cannot go on with your planning without referring to any of these very, very important documents. All right. I think by now everyone knows how to get access to these documents, and as a shortcut, you can just go on our JEDLR platform, and you can also have access to all the official documents from BPK. Yeah, and in facing these challenges, teachers and teachers out there, there's challenges in teaching and learning, especially in this time of pandemic. And I think being teachers, you should analyze and reflect on your teaching. And I think, Vicky, you mentioned just now about remapping, right? The Pembelajaran curriculum, remapping, and of course, priority is given to the main skills. Okay, and when we talk about the main skills, this is where I think teachers should really see where your students are now, because we are looking at learning gaps. Okay, learning gaps. There are children who could not join online classes. There are children who might be missing certain classes. And our major concern now is the Form 5 students, right? So these learning gaps need to be addressed, and intervention had to be planned and executed in order to narrow the gaps, especially for the Form 5 students. Yeah. And if we look at PBD now is getting more and more important, especially now as we are conducting, all of you out there are conducting online classes. Formative assessment PBD is the only way for you to track the progress of your students, right? So this is where it is of utmost importance to understand the performance standard, because then only you could ensure that the students has acquired the standard accordingly. Yeah, Vicky, as what you mentioned just now.
Yeah.
And what I find, when you mentioned about relearn, to unlearn and relearn, it is very important for us to see the progress in learning and to ensure that the learner's own development in the CEFR scale. And right now, our focus is to ensure that they should reach B1. All right. So our focus is more on the can-do statement for the B1 students, and to see that they are progressing towards B1 instead of comparing the individual performance against the performance of other students. Yeah. So there's so much that both of you have shared. I cannot thank you enough. And with such constraint in terms of conducting face-to-face workshop with teachers, as I know, there are so many requests from the PPD to conduct this face-to-face. But I hope by having this webinar, teachers can watch and re-watch how many times you want. The video is going to be there, so they can use this as a point of reference. Yeah, and I think it wouldn't hurt to also use this video for, CPD, for the panitia in the school. All right. So thank you so much, Vicky and Chu. There's so many things that you have shared today. That's why we call it the fundamentals of CEFR, right? So for all of you out there, there are more to come from us, JEDLR, because I have seen some questions regarding PBD. We are planning actually to have a webinar that is going to be focusing on purely PBD for primary school and also for secondary school. So thank you very much. I've seen some viewers from Perak, from Kelantan, and also SISCs even, SISCs from Johor, of course, and also from other parts of Malaysia, from Perak. So thank you so much. I hope that we have managed to assist many teachers out there in Johor and also across all over Malaysia to ensure that you know, like we've seen all the comments that we got this. So I'm hoping that finally rollout done, so teachers have a stronger understanding of the documents, and also to become a better classroom, CFR classroom practitioner. Yeah, so thank you so much on behalf of our Timbalan Pengarah Pendidikan Negeri Johor. I would like to thank Cikgu Vicknes and Cikgu Chu for, you know, all the preparations that you have done to make this webinar possible, and for all of you out there who have joined our webinars. And please do not forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss the upcoming webinars that I am sure would assist you in your career as a teacher. So on that note, thank you. And of course, the most important phrase nowadays is stay safe. Kita jaga kita. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good weekend and bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
You.